Now I would like to start by presenting you such an ambitious young man. His name is Misha. He comes from a small town in Ukraine, but the same is true for anyone who comes from a third country. He had the opportunity throughout his education, throughout his adolescence, to travel a little around through Western Europe. He has been to Paris, to London, to Rome, for example, and also to Vienna. And when he came to Vienna, he immediately had this special connection. He felt very close to home. And he decides, and now he's at the point, just got his school certification from after leaving school, and now he has to think about what am I going to do with my life. As already his heart is somehow connected to Vienna, he decides, well, Vienna is the place I want to be. I want to study, I want to work, I want to stay, maybe not for the rest of my life, but for some time. So he collects information, he looks around where he could study, which universities, which study programs are offered, and he decides that he wants to study at the University of Business and Economics in Vienna. His dream, his wish is to study at the VU, but this is connected with a lot of difficulties. Mainly it's two major fields he has to cover regarding the legal requirements of immigration. The legal requirements in general. The one thing is the application at the university, and the other thing is the residence permit, the opportunity to legally stay in Austria. He asks himself several questions. How do I get what kind of residence permit would I need, or is a visa maybe sufficient? What kind of residence permit do I need? What's the difference between a residence permit and a visa? How does the university application work? And somehow he has to afford his living here in Vienna. He needs a job. He wants to know, how will I be able to work while I'm studying here in Vienna, and how much can I work there? First of all, and that's when trying to understand immigration law, you have to differentiate between some legal terms. And I will also always use the German translation or the German word, because the English translation might not be 100% perfectly fitting for what is meant by that. So the one opportunity is the Aufenthalt, the residence, which is limited for a certain amount of time and a certain purpose. That's why it's called residence permit for students, Aufenthaltsbewilligung für Studenten, and that's what we will focus on further on, because that's the most important legal title, the legal document Misha will have to acquire. The second part is the settlement. Settlement is also limited only for a certain amount of time and only for a certain purpose, but with the aim to stay for a longer time. So as a student, you will move back to your hometown, to your home country after a time, or the idea behind it, to move back. And with the settlement title, the idea is, for the moment you stay here for a limited period of time, approval period, if you want to say, and if you behave, if everything works out as planned, you can stay for longer. And the long unlimited title, or the unlimited permission to stay in Austria, is the permanent residence title. Daueraufenthalt EU, it's called in German. That allows you to stay in Austria for an unlimited period of time and to work at any job you want to. As I said, unlimited, but you have to renew it every 5 years. As I said, maybe we have to look at it together. The permanent residence automatically gives you the right to work in Austria, any job, any employer. It's a little more difficult with the residence permit and the settlement permit. You're not automatically allowed to take any job, but you have to apply for a working permit, so-called Beschäftigungsbewilligung by the Austrian agency for the labor market. For the rest of the evening, we have to differentiate between residence, settlement, and permanent residence. Those are, let's say, 3 different steps on your immigration process, and the longer you stay in Austria, the further you get. The final step would be citizenship, but it's a little apart from that. Misha now wants to study. We already know, he already found out that as a student, he might need a residence permit for students. How does that work out for him? What are the requirements? First of all, and on the basic level, you have the basic requirements for a residence permit. That's true for almost every residence permit you might apply for, not only for students, but also in other cases. And those are the 3 magic words, I'd say, is housing, income, and insurance. You have to prove to the Austrian authority that those main aspects of your life are covered, and some other aspects as well, but this is, so to say, the first step. If your funds are not high enough, if your monthly income is not high enough, if you don't have a place to live at, and if you are not socially secured, if you don't have a health insurance is enough, you can forget it. Second thing is, if you want to study in Austria, you need a place to study. And now it gets pretty difficult because Misha is a very intelligent guy. He's already studied a lot, also languages. And he was even very ambitious. He took the German exam at the Goethe Institute in Lviv, but only at the A2 level. And in order to study in Austria, in a German-speaking program, and this business program he's planning to take is in German, you need to have German at least you have to talk to prove that your German level is on C1, so almost perfect. They changed this. There was in the summer semester 2019, so this at the beginning of this year, they implemented a new rule. So if you're applying for a new university program, you need to prove, in order to be accepted for as an irregular student, you need to prove that your German level is at least at level A2. So you need to have some basic knowledge of German, and then the university sends you to a preparational course where you need to take an exam at the end of this course, and you need this exam in order to be able to study as a regular student within the first 2 years of your student residence permit. Misha at least has the certification for level A2, so he is able to get enlisted at the university as an irregular student. And within the first 2 years, he has to pass the exam for this university preparational course. First thing covered. By the way, there is might also be some other restrictions connected with the application. For example, as far as I know, for Ukrainian students, they finish school after 11 years of school, which is 1 year less than in Austria. So universities might also ask you to prove that you have passed the first year of university program in Ukraine at least. So you need to have something equivalent to the Austrian school leaving exam, the Matura. And that might also depend on the education you bring with you when you immigrate to Austria. I can't say it in general how it works for everyone. So, second step is a place to study. Thirdly, language skills. I just mentioned that. And, of course, a residence permit, as I just said, is limited for a certain period of time. And this residence permit for students is always limited to 1 year. You have to extend it every year, and at every extension, you have to prove your academic success. And what does academic success mean? You need to pass exams at university at least 16 credits. We have the European credits transfer system. 16 credits each year. And this is what you need to prove to your authority by showing you transcript of records from university, for example. As I said, Misha does not only want to study, and then in Vienna he also has to afford his life somehow. He needs to make money in order to be able to afford his housing, afford his insurance, and so on. How does it work? How much are you allowed to work as a student? I guess most of you might probably know. What's the limitation? Is there any limitation with work in Austria for foreign students from third countries? 20 hours, you'll know that, yeah. Actually, the limitation is not per se 20 hours. It could be more, but for the 20 hours, there you don't need an assessment by the Arbeitsmarktservice, by the AMS. You just get it if you have a job, and that's the first requirement. You need the job first. If you have the job, your employer, not yourself, your employer has to apply for the working permit. And the working permit is always granted to the employer, never to the employee itself. So if you change your job, so if you need to look for a new job, you need to apply again for working permission. So the working permission always depends on the job. So you can even have more working hours per week, but not without market examination. And I think it would be also very difficult to get an according working permit, because with the student visa, that means you're here for studying, yeah, to focus on your studies and not to work mainly.